Hey programmers, this time we're figuring out how to get around in the Grandma 3 software and also taking a look at some of the new interfaces. Since this series is Grandma 3 for Grandma 2 programmers, we normally be talking about the software in the context of the Grandma 2, but a lot of this stuff is such a departure that it just doesn't really have an equivalent on the two. So I'll equate when I can, but a lot of this is going to be new concepts, stuff that we have to know so that we can get around everything else. Today, we're going to talk about the control bar, new stuff on the command line, display options, and gestures. And I'll show as much as I can in on PC so that everybody can follow along. And here's my on PC window. First off, we have to take a look at the control bar. That's going to be this bar on the left. If you don't see it, look for the arrow at the bottom of the screen. The top button can be used to shut down our consoles. Below that, this icon works the same as hitting the menu key. Since we're on PC in this video, I'll mostly be using this, but on a console, I'd probably be hitting the actual menu key. The third button opens our command section, which gives us our on-screen keys, much like opening the command keys in MA2 on PC. Here's our master controls button. The top section gives us on-screen fader options for the currently selected master, and below that are faders specific to special masters, some of which should look pretty familiar, like the program and executor time. The playback control button opens an overlay that shows us our executors and also what's stored on them. I'll be honest, this window threw me at first because I didn't immediately recognize that the window's actually separated into two sections. The bottom half represents the actual hardware of your keys, faders, and knobs. The top section is just another representation of what's shown on the playback bar. Because of this, the information is a little separated. See how there's a sequence called look on executor 201? It's represented here in the playback feedback and also by the master fader on screen. They're not next to each other. If I store something to executor button 101, I can see its go function at the bottom and the name of it in the playback screen above my fader and executor 301 and 401. It all does make sense, but because the feedback isn't immediately next to the button or fader, it's just taking me a minute to get used to it. If you're using on PC and not the console, this window's probably going to be pretty beneficial to you. It's easy to open from the control bar when you need it temporarily, but this window is technically what MA calls an overlay. And let's pause here and talk about that. An overlay is a temporary window, one that you wouldn't store into a view. We had the same idea on the MA2. Think of windows like the Edit or Assign menu for a cue list. Those were temporary as well. It's easy to spot an overlay window because it has the X in the top right corner. Also, overlays can be moved to different screens, just like on the MA2, with this little screen icon next to the X. So, since this is an overlay window, what would we do in on PC if we wanted to store it as a view? Well, in this case, we do have this same window available as a non-overlay option. I'm going to close the overlay, clear my screen, and touch it. Then from here, I'll pick Playback. This window looks the same, but this time it's not an overlay, so I could store this as a view. We'll come back to views and all those possible windows we can create in another video. Back to the control bar. The next option is only for on PC. This button that looks like a monitor will allow us to open up the other touchscreens and command screens as additional windows. Touching the question mark puts help on our command line so that you can then touch the thing that you want to get help with, or just hit please after. The At on-screen button is something that I love when using on PC. It has some nice shortcuts to things that we use pretty often, like clear and basic intensity values, but it's a much smaller menu than the command overlay. The lock button will lock the desk. This is just the default lock screen. As you can guess, everything's configurable. To unlock, you can use your computer or console's pause key, or you can hold MA and the pause fix keys if you have a console or a wing, or you can always touch or click the top left corner, then the bottom right corner, top right corner, and bottom left corner to unlock. And you can do that on any screen. At the bottom, you may have an arrow up or down option on your on-PC depending on how much screen space the program is taking up. These will show when the control menu doesn't completely show up on the screen so that you can scroll. The last button at the bottom, the arrow left button, will collapse or restore this menu. Before we go on, if you're playing along at home and you just loaded the software, you may not already be in the demo show file. If that's the case, hit the menu button and go to Backup. Now, we'll come back to the options in this window in another video, but for now, let's make sure that we are in the Load tab and we're set to the internal drive. Then click next to that until you see Demo Shows. I'm using demo_Grand 3 show, so click that and hit Load Show. Now you should see a few windows that were pre-built into a view in this show file. While we're here, take a look at this Groups pool. Just like the MA2, the first tile has the name, but instead of the yellow ball, it has an MA logo. It's the same thing. Hitting the MA in the title of any of your windows will give you the setting options for that window. There was also a little yellow ball that expanded our command line on the MA2, and that's here on our command line as well, but again, they've just replaced the yellow ball with the MA logo. Speaking of the command line, a few things have been added in the 3. It now shows the user before our default command prompt. Want to change that prompt? Same as the 2. You could type channel please, or fixture please, etc. And if you're wanting to get the keyboard prompt on the command line, you can still hold MA and press please. This button here gives us our virtual keyboard option. And by the way, when you're labeling items, if you want to use the on-screen keyboard and don't see it, look for a down arrow. That will expand or collapse that keyboard. On the right side of the command line, we've got the power level of the internal battery backup. That's only for the console, not for on PC. Next is your station's network status by color, and you can also tap the icon to open the network window. The 2 status bars next are for phaser workloads, one for attributes and one for steps. And there's too much to cover about phasers to explain that in this video. After that, the envelope icon is our message center, showing us stuff like warnings and alerts. The globe icon is the world server connection. Green would indicate that it's connected, but in this version of software, it's not available yet. The SH cuts symbol will toggle our keyboard shortcuts on or off. You can also use your F10 key. If I open up the command section with shortcuts on, you can see the shortcuts are written in purple on the screen. Shortcuts can be edited and added and saved with your user profile. This could be done in the Preferences and Timing window, or you can just long press or right-click on the SH Cuts icon to jump there. Lastly, the arrow on the right collapses and expands the view bar. And the view bars are present on all our touchscreens, just like the MA2, but they're now also available on the command screens as well. On the Grand Mal 2, we'd get to a lot of our configurations by using the Settings key. On Grand Mal 3, we can access most of those with the Menu key. The Menu key pop-up can be thought of as a combination of things we found in the Setup and Backup windows on the MA2. The options within each of these menu objects can be pretty dense, so we'll explore them in their own videos. For now, I want to focus on the second window on the right called Display. The top 2 buttons, Delete This Screen and Delete All Screens, work just like the Clear Screen and Clear All Screens in the Grand Mal 2. The bottom 2 options in the display menu determine where you prefer to see the pop-up menu windows appear, on one particular screen or wherever they appear by default. The Configure Display button opens a new menu that would pop up on each screen, and the configuration will be unique to each screen. Show Title Bar can be used to hide the title bar that's only present in On PC. The show or hide options for the command line and encoder bar do exactly as they say. I'd recommend never hiding your command line unless you have it open somewhere else. The option to show the encoder bar, which also includes the built-in preset toolbar, is on by default in On PC. On the consoles, the encoder bar already appears on the letterbox screens, but in On PC, we don't have those letterboxes, so again, I'd recommend leaving it on. The same idea holds true for the playback bar on screens 2 and 3 when we configure their display options. You can choose to hide the playback bar on PC if you really need to add more user configurable space to the screen. Other show and hide options are for the control bar and views bar. This is essentially the same as using the collapse and expand arrows that we've already seen. In the middle, first off, is an appearance option. The drop-down here lets us pick something from our appearance pool, like a color or an image to be the background for our screen. There's a lot more to appearances, and we'll get into that in a later video. Width and height options allow you to change the amount of user-definable space in the window, and each whole number is the equivalent of a tile in a pool. So if I increase this number, then I can make the view windows larger than the physical window, allowing me to scroll up and down or left and right. You'll know when a display is bigger than the default because it gets an orange border around it. If you want to get back to the default size, just hit Reset Size. The scale option is only for on-PC and external monitors. It'll be grayed out on the console's internal monitors. I've already changed the scale of this screen so that it's easier to work with. See what happens if I change the scale to 1? I have to scroll around and I just can't see everything as well. You may want to play with this on your on-PC to find a scale that works best for you. Also, definitely pay attention to how making the program window smaller doesn't proportionately shrink the screen. So set a size for the window first, then play with the scale. We only had one multi-touch screen on the Grandma 2, but on the 3, all of the screens are multi-touch, and that allows for some new interactions that they call gestures. An example of a multi-touch gesture would be using 2 fingers to zoom in and out of certain windows. I can also change the size of a window by holding the title with 1 finger and then touching where I want the screen to end with a 2nd finger. A 2-finger scroll is a scroll within a single window. And if you're using on PC, you can click both mouse keys and drag to do this. A 3-finger scroll is used to scroll all windows in a view when the complete user configurable space is larger than the screen. For example, if we set our width higher in the configure options, I could use the 3-finger scroll to move around in this window. You can get this effect in on PC by using that same dual mouse key click and drag that we used for the 2-finger scroll. I can also do a 2-finger edit of cells like this. I'll highlight the cell with 1 finger, then tap the screen with a 2nd finger, and now I can enter a new value in. You can also do a long press on a cell. With on PC, you can just right-click. Works on cells, and it also works to edit presets. There's also new gesture inputs that don't take multiple touches. For example, you can use a long press on an object to store something to it, in lieu of hitting store first. I think that alone will save you a bunch of time in on PC. A swipey is when we press and swipe in a direction or click and drag with a mouse on an object like a preset tile to access action objects for common things we need to do, like store, label, delete, move, copy, assign, or edit. And of course, if you pick label and click the little squiggly, you can do a scribble, which is new to MA3. Now, I'm not going to draw what everybody draws the first time they do a scribble, which is obviously a rocket ship, right? Yeah, those are absolutely gotta be rocket ships. I will tell you though that whatever you do decide to scribble, it will not only be applied to anything you're labeling, but also saved in the scribbles pool, so you can apply it to other objects as well. Did you draw a rocket ship? Yeah, nice. Next up, we're going to talk about the backup menu and also file storage structure for our show files and other objects. Thanks for watching.